How's it guys, Munash here, and today we have some Variant 7 boss fights. Yes, I know, some very exciting content that you've probably never seen before. But all joking aside, I did want to make this video yesterday, but it's just been one of those weeks, so I didn't have much time to. So I'm making it today as I just completed Variant 7. So first up we have Cyclops, the world's most effective mutant or something like that. I'm paraphrasing Kabam Mike, but yeah, so he has the unblockable node, energize, a couple of other stuff, but who cares? The most important thing about this fight is that I am using a rank 5 Black Widow Clairvoyant for the very first time. That is all you need to know. I took this champ straight from rank 1 to rank 5 within like 5 minutes, hopped into Variant 7 and just started having a blast with her on this path, which does have the bleed and poison vulnerability nodes, which are pretty nice for her I must say, since she does have easy access to those two debuffs. And this Cyclops also has those two nodes along with an armor buff, which Clairvoyant just nullified early in the fight. In fact, the very first hit nullified it, so yeah, lovely piece of utility there. And then I just switched and remained in the poison or plague curse just for the power control with the special 2, since he does have that energized node, so the special 2 will at least not give him any power, basically. It actually gives him some and then takes it away, and sort of like playing a tug of war with his power bar, but the overall net power gain is very minimal. And you're not just draining power, but you're actually power stealing, which means you'll get to the special 2 even faster. And I am running level 4 MD, so I'm gaining even more power from the constant triggering of the armor buff and the precision from his specials. Okay, let's move on to the next fight, which is gonna be OG Spider-Man. And for this one I used Archangel because I was very worried about it. I wasn't sure if the Mutant Wrath node giving you a 125% increase in attack would be enough for this one. I thought maybe 500 would be a bit more reasonable, because he does have that terrifying armor node for 45% increased armor. Also, the teamwork node increasing your ability accuracy by 10% for each hero champ you have in a team has to be some kind of joke, right? Because 10%, a measly 10% for each champ, doesn't really seem like it does much. I mean, I'm only getting 2 neurotoxins with each heavy attack, and I felt like if I just had 3, this fight would be a lot more manageable. It almost took me 30 seconds to take this guy down with this cheap RNG. But seriously though, Archangel is pretty disgusting in this chapter, just because of the increased ability accuracy. It's kind of like you're using a Horseman Archangel. Now we're gonna move on to chapter 2, where we first have a Symbiote Spider-Man, with a few somewhat annoying nodes like Card Knock Life and Rising Sun I suppose. And of course shifting immunity if you want to rely on a champ who uses bleed or poison. But he also has the skill Wrath node, so I'm going to be using a skill champ, and that skill champ is going to be Falcon because he counters pretty much everything else going on in this fight. So as you can see, I just shot the basic combo, which gave me a bunch of fury buffs from the Rising Sun node, and I just need to make sure I don't get more than 10, otherwise it will turn into a passive degen, so you can just parry heavy to remove them all. But the cool thing about Falcon is once you're locked on, he doesn't trigger the fury buffs, he actually just ignores the Rising Sun node, since it activates when the defender gets struck. But what I found interesting is that he also bypasses Spider-Man's evade, which I thought was an offensive ability because he activates that passive by throwing a special attack. Unless the whole evade mechanic itself is considered as defensive, then it makes sense. But yeah, Falcon works pretty well for this fight, and he didn't take that much block damage despite Spidey having the hard knock node and 17,000 attack. But there's also some of that rank 3 awesomeness coming into play, like the adrenaline mechanic. So now we have SpiderGwen, and she has nodes. A bunch of nodes. Okay, so she has Counter Strike, so unblockable after 10 dexes, enhanced special 2, and enhanced abilities, which might be a bit interesting if you're trying to use ability accuracy reduction to counter evade, particularly towards the end where the chance to evade is much higher. Then she has aggressive, which is quite nice, and then bubble shield, which can be somewhat annoying I guess, and then stack overflow, which just boosts your tech champs' debuffs duration by 10% per tech champ. So I brought 4 tech champs for this part, but I ended up using the 1 champ who isn't tech in my team. Stealth Spidey is a pretty good counter with the slow debuff, although I did get wrecked once when I didn't have the slow on her and she evade comboed me, which you're about to see. She throws a special 1, so I try to punish it, but Stealth Spidey's medium attack does leave you quite vulnerable if the opponent evades, and just add that to the list of why I don't like double mediums in this game. So I took just 3 hits and lost most of my health. Fortunately none of them were crits, because I don't think I would have survived with her having 5 charges. but I did manage to recuperate and recover a bit of health with that sweet adrenaline. And this is why I prefer my 6-star style Spidey, even though my 5-star actually hits harder since he is awakened. That adrenaline regen helps so much, especially for him since he has a fairly low health pool and just isn't that durable in general. So in terms of web cartridge usage in this fight, I first went for the short one with the 6-hit combo early in the fight, just to have an easier time to get set up and everything. But after that I did a 7-hit combo instead of doing the 6 hits again, just to maximize uptime on the slow debuff. Then obviously after refreshing it I'll get the passive Fury. Then I can throw the special 1 to get the passive Precision. Then I thought I was gonna do more light combos and then build to a special 3. But after getting hit I decided to save for the special 2 to get the longer slow, which makes the rest of the fight easier to manage. But of course you can just parry and drop 3 hits. So not too bad, and now moving on to chapter 3 where the fights get a little bit more difficult. We first have a Venom with Adamnesis, the classic Venom node. Enhanced Special 2, which isn't a Venom node but it's a classic node to have on Venom. Then there's Energizer and Crit Resistance, the 2 most annoying nodes in this fight. There's also some nodes that benefit Exile champs, but I didn't really pay attention to them to be honest. And then there's Science Wrath, so I used She-Hulk for this fight. She's a pretty good counter because of the taunt mechanic built into her Furies, so I was able to bait a lot of special 1s very quickly and easily. So Energize wasn't that much of an issue. I think he only threw 1 special 2, which was pretty early in the fight before I had a lot of Furies. But then from that point on, it was just a lot of special 1s being thrown very quickly. So the only mistake I made, well, it wasn't really a mistake, but the only thing I forgot about was the crit resistance node. And She-Hulk doesn't have any form of damage over time or red numbers, so you're just gonna see a bunch of white numbers being thrown all over the place. And they aren't even gonna be the biggest white numbers because Venom also gains those physical resistance and armor buffs throughout the fight. So what I should have done is brought the Mr. Fantastic synergy, because then I'll be able to do some very nice passive power sting damage, which could have cut the fight time by quite a lot I imagine. This was the longest fight out of all of them. But it wasn't like crazy long, it just took a little bit over 2.5 minutes. And it's a very basic fight. I was just dropping shortened combos so he doesn't gain too much power, and then dropping L1s and baiting L1s, and that is pretty much it. So I'm just gonna use this opportunity to talk about Variant 7 as the rest of the fight plays. Before I started making this video, I actually wasn't sure how I should go about making content for Variant 7, because I felt like most of it is pretty straightforward. It's not the most challenging variant. There's a lot of nodes that benefit you, such as the vulnerabilities and the wraths for each class. A few champion specific nodes as well, like the Hulk node in the 3rd chapter. I haven't explored all of it yet, I just skimmed through the parts, checked the nodes, and there might be a few annoying fights here and there, and maybe 1 or 2 that are actually difficult compared to the others. But overall, it's really not that bad. You shouldn't have any problems if you're a Thronebreaker player. Even a Cavalier player, I don't think this is harder than Act 6 Chapter 1. Maybe it's around the same level. I haven't actually done anything in 6.1 in almost 2 years now, besides the Crossbones fight I did a few days ago. I think you'll only have a hard time if you're lacking in a certain class, or your roster just isn't strong enough, like not a lot of good 5 stars, or at least not ranked up to a decent level. Although you can use 4 stars, it's just gonna take a bit longer, and I suppose require a bit more skill. So I don't think I'm gonna be uploading full path clears for this variant like I did for the previous ones. I'm just not feeling it as much, but don't get me wrong, I have had my fun in this, even though a lot of it is just bits of pieces borrowed from other variants. I think it's just the fact that it's not that challenging that makes me not too interested in making guides for it. But of course, if you guys really want me to, then I can do it. If you're not done with it already, because I know I'm a bit late and there probably are some guys out there already. Anyway, now we're gonna move on to the final boss, which is gonna be Miles Morales. With Enhanced Special 1, not a big deal. Specialist 1, which can be a bit annoying if you want to use a Special 2 or 3 for damage. Hard Knock Life can be a bit annoying, but it's only level 1, so it's not too bad really. You can still parry stun with a few disorients on you. You just don't want to block too much too quickly, because then the damage can ramp up quite quickly when you have a lot of them. Strike Back, somewhat annoying if you're using a champ who relies on a lot of special attacks, but I mean it just means more baiting special 2s. Flux Dispersal can actually be even more annoying, because then your physical damage is quite limited, unless you can throw heavies very frequently, which you can't always do, or you can't do with anyone because he does evade, so you have to watch out for that. So I just went with Hyperion because I never actually brought an evade counter. He still works pretty well for this fight because of his special 1, really good for Flux Dispersal. Also, it has quite a bit of pushback, which makes him less likely to punish after evading it. But in order to throw it safely and have it connect, I just had to parry stun him first. And of course make sure he doesn't have too much power because there is strike back. So usually in a fight like this I would use a special 3 first to get the cosmic charges, cause you know, if you watch my war videos, more masculinity and all that. But this time I avoided it because first of all he has strike back, which means that he's gonna get a lot of power after the special 3. There's the 1 bar he gets from the node and the actual hit itself. And that might make it more difficult for me to manage my own power because he evades a lot, so I can't just drop a special 1 whenever I want. And when it does connect I trigger strike back, which means taking more time to bait a special attack, and by then I will have more power than I want. I can't throw a special 1 anymore, I have to throw a special 2, or maybe even worse, I have to throw a special 3. Then I'd go from gaining too much power to gaining too little power, and then the fight becomes more long and boring. I also had the Cap Infinity War synergy for more buff duration, which might not have helped in this fight, so I just avoided the special 3 altogether. So Hyperion worked pretty well for this fight, despite not being able to counter evade. He just synergizes really well with some of the nodes like Specialist 1 and Flux Dispersal, and of course the Cosmic Wrath. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys found it interesting. As always, thank you for watching, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.